Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Oh, love this one.
You're such a motivator.
Right,
Gotta get your way.
Oh, you bumped out of there too fast, Kurt. Hey, everybody. Welcome to What's Up with Deborah Kobylt. We have a fun show today, and I'm really excited to share it with you. And thank you for playing, Kurt, my favorite Adam Levine. I love him.
Of course.
Love. And thank you for being sort of kind of my co-host and guy on the side and all that kind of stuff. So chime in anytime you want. How's that?
Of course, yeah.
Such
I'll be
a
there
fun
with you.
show. Did you listen or watch the caucuses at all? Do you know what's going on over there?
I've only heard. I've been here at UBN so much. I haven't actually been able to see it, but I've heard how interesting it went.
It's been really interesting. So we have a great show. We've got Jon Fleischman coming on in a little while, and we've got Dan Lothian, creator of Heart Beings and also a former CNN correspondent. But right now, we're starting our show, What's Up with Deborah Kobylt, with an incredible life coach and blogger, and her name is Susie Moore. Hey, Susie, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm so glad to be here with you.
I love reading your blogs. Everything you have to say resonates with me. It's really, really interesting. And what I loved hearing is you can maybe help us a little bit today about how to be a little more alluring in social settings. Now, that's a big one. That's a mouthful. You know, social settings where? At your school, at the office, politically. Now, since we're going to be talking about politics a lot today.
Yes.
It all sort of depends upon where you are, no? So what do you teach people and what do you do?
Yes. It's really funny. Depending on, your personality type, if you're extroverted, introverted, really no matter who you are, a lot of us suffer from social anxiety at some point in their lives. And like you said, at certain events, in the office, professionally, personally, it's something that we can all work on, master, and improve based on, kind of our confidence level and what it is that we want to achieve in the social setting that we're in. But there are really some certain rules that can apply to most situations, which are pretty easy to harness over time.
Okay, so give us something that would work in almost any situation of how to you maybe start up a conversation or, what do you suggest? Because let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I appear to be, here we go. I appear to, Kurt loves this. I love talking about myself, by the way. I appear to be very friendly and outgoing, but the real truth is I couldn't have more anxiety in many social situations. And a lot of times I'll show up at something and I will immediately go straight to the bathroom. And I'm not going to the bathroom. I just go sit in the bathroom and try and figure out what to do and say to people. Do you do that, Kurt?
Yes.
I'm kind of, a little bit of the same way. I'll usually end up hanging out with the same people the whole night. I don't really mingle much. It's just kind of me in the corner doing my thing.
Yeah, so you're in the corner. I'm in the bathroom trying to figure out what to do. Once I come out of there, I can sort of turn it on because, I am a TV person, so I know how to do that. But on the inside, I'm trembling. So what do you suggest to get over his anxiety where he just sits in the corner with the same people and then me who is just trying to get through the night?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the most important things to remember, and I'm so happy, Deborah and Kat, that you're so honest and open about this, is that most people feel the same way you do. So, and you outgoing, accomplished, professional, cool people, you still suffer from these kind of nerves, this level of discomfort perhaps around new people, and even just acknowledging that you are not the only one. Often our ego will allow us to think that, gosh, I'm the only one who feels nervous. Everyone's looking at me, or everyone maybe thinks that my jokes aren't funny, or maybe my outfit isn't fantastic. Whatever it is that's kind of going on in your mind, the conversation that makes you nervous, people in the same room at the same event, wherever you are thinking the same thing about themselves.
Right. So I try and say to myself, okay, everyone else is feeling the same way. Let it go. Sometimes somebody said, imagine people that are naked. Okay. So it depends upon who I'm looking at. And that could actually work in my favor or not. But, depending upon. So I try and almost undress them in a way so that we're all starting from the same base. Or am I is that ridiculous?
Yes. No, the thing is, no matter who you are, and I've researched some of the most successful, rich celebrities, CEOs, I've interviewed many of them too, and they all will tell you they have their own insecurities, their own fears, their own anxieties. So even just recognizing that you're human, other people are human, it can really put you at ease wherever you are. In social situations, especially in the USA, where more of an extroverted personality can be really rewarded, there can certainly be this pressure for us to always be on and extra chatty and really interesting. Whereas all you really need to do to be welcome and to be cool in a social setting is to have a positive attitude, but to be kind and open, to ask questions. Like, asking questions is the key thing that you can do, not only just to quell your nerves, but to get other people to like you, because people love talking about themselves and also takes the spotlight off of you.
This is very true.
And then also just, yes, and the asking questions, in fact, is probably the single most thing that successful people do really well. Wherever you are, if you ask somebody about themselves, where are you from? How do you know if it's at a wedding? How do you know the bride? How do you know the groom? Or how long have you worked in this industry? Whatever it may be, asking questions is the best way to get other people to open up and feel at ease, and as a result, also put you at ease.
Is there anything personal that you can ask someone? Like, sometimes I will say, after I've gotten through those questions, like, how do you know the bride? How do you know the groom? What do you do? And that's always a scary one, because I think, if they're not working, they're going to think I'm rude. Is that an okay question to start to open up a conversation, or what do you suggest?
So this is a common question, but I don't think it's necessarily the best one initially. Because often with that question, the intent behind it, no mean intent, but often it can be a matter of understanding, how much do you earn? How important are you? Like, what's your status compared to mine? And like you said, Deborah, some people don't always feel comfortable, no matter what their kind of, position is professionally. They always don't like to open up about work immediately initially. So there's actually a policy that I have at dinner parties now. When I go to them, I make it a rule to not ask anyone what they do unless they start talking about it within the first hour.
That's good to know.
Because
So then how do you start up a conversation? And I love how you say, how to be more alluring. So how can one be more alluring in a conversation? I like that one.
Well, I think the most important thing to do is to bring the right energy, and you're always in control of your own energy. In fact, your thoughts, your actions, your behavior, that's the only thing that you can really control in the world. You can't control the weather, the traffic, other people, but you can always control the attitude and energy you bring to any situation. So when you think about it, no matter where you are, just say it's a dinner party, there is so much that you can talk about. You can talk about the city that you're in. Of course, right now there's a big, we're in an election year, so that can be a topic of discussion. You can talk about the neighborhood. You can ask where somebody is from. You can talk about the food. There are so many kind of cool, interesting, kind of neutral topics that you can bring to light, and if you can find common ground with someone on anything, that's such a great way, not even just to keep a conversation going, but even to strike up a friendship.
And then you talk about how to be more engaging and interesting to the people around you. Like, how do you build on this? How do you become alluring, more interesting, all that, when frankly, even just getting out of that bathroom and even starting up a conversation can be anxiety producing?
Yes. Well, the most attractive people, the most charming people, and if you pay attention to any kind of past experiences where you've met anyone who stood out to you, who you thought, oh, he or she is really cool, and I'd like to spend more time with that person, they've always been interested and engaging and positive about a certain topic. So, for example, if you're speaking to somebody new, you can talk about airport delays and terrible weather, or you can talk about maybe the most recent weekend activity, say it's skiing, for example. And if that person is passionate and engaging and speaks with enthusiasm about any topic, that's very attractive.
So kind of stick with something that you think sort of is working. Like if you just said you brought up skiing, and if that person seems passionate about it, kind of stick with that. Is that a good one? Go ahead.
Yes.
No, go ahead. I don't want to step on you.
I was at an event recently in New York, and it was quite a fancy event in Midtown, and there was a big ice sculpture in the room, right? And this ice sculpture was a talking point because, it was kind of big and fabulous, and you don't really see these very, very often. And I was standing near the ice sculpture and just talking to different people. And some people would say, oh, God, this ice sculpture is so tacky, it's so garish. selfish, right? And some other people would say, oh my gosh, this icebox is crazy, right? Oh, wow, it's so different. And it's a very different energy from those two different types of people.
Right. I agree with you. Try and keep it on the up and up and positive. I agree. Okay. How do you end something? Because sometimes you're in a have you ever walked up to someone in the middle of a party or whatever, and you're having a conversation with them, and all of a sudden their conversation seems to stop dead, and you think, oh God, what did I do? So then you come up with some kind of question, and then they give you a 1 or 2 word answer, and then I'm thinking, oh, now what? How do I bow out of this? Like, how do you bow out of something like that where you feel like you just screwed up?
Yes. So again, social encounters, they can be a little awkward sometimes. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, there isn't a perfect script that we follow wherever we go. But if you're chatting to someone and the conversation's coming to a natural end, it's always okay to say something along the lines of, it was great meeting you, Deborah. There are lots of people here I'd love to speak to. It'd be remiss of me not to say hello to them. So hopefully catch you later this evening.
Oh, that's
something
a good
along
one.
those lines.
If someone said that to me, though, it was lovely meeting you, and there are other people I'd like to talk to, I would almost think that they want to get away from me. So, no, I would. I'd be like, oh, no. So that's what I mean. I have a lot of that social anxiety. I am almost convinced if I told any of my friends that, they'd be like, Deborah, are you kidding me? Like, you seem like the life of the party, and you're enjoying yourself, and it's almost the opposite. I don't know. Maybe I have good game face. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Kurt. You want to say something?
No, I tend to have problems at parties when trying to get a word in edgewise. Like sometimes the other person likes to dominate the conversation, and I don't feel like a good way in which to interject into like giving my point of view. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
A lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what do you do in a case like that? He doesn't feel like he can even get a word in edgewise.
Yeah.
How does he get in there?
So sometimes it may be not. There are conversation hogs, and there are plenty of them. It's okay to either, just interject naturally as soon as you can, or you can just maybe not spend so much time with that person if they're just completely self-involved and show no interest in you. Sometimes if I'm tired and I'm going through something and I kind of don't really want to make an effort to be chatty and bubbly, I love being around chatty people because I just have to smile and nod, right? So there can also be a bit of a saving grace with these people sometimes. But if it's not interesting to you and the conversation isn't serving you at all, again, it's okay to move around and not just be, this recipient of a totally one-way conversation. Wherever you are, you always have the power to control who you're going to be speaking to, where you're going to be directing your energy. And it's always okay to end conversations too. You can't go anywhere and just speak to one person. That very rarely happens. So it's up to you whether or not you still want to pursue a conversation with someone. You might be a bit of a hog, but it's also totally okay to walk away if you're not interested too.
Right. Kurt, what were you going to say?
No, well, and then I guess it's helpful to know if you are the hog itself, you're just dominating the whole entire thing. But
yeah, are you saying something?
Yes, sometimes.
No.
I'm messing with you.
No, not at all.
No, I know. I'm messing with you. Last night, I was in a situation with various couples and single friends and it was sort of a varied kind of a thing. And I walked into the situation a little nervous about it because I didn't know if I had anything to say to these people. I haven't seen them in a while. And it actually worked out very nicely. Whenever I feel like that, my one thing is I do tend to ask about the other person.
Yeah.
I tend to do something that it must come from nerves, like I'll fall and I'll slip or I'll bump my head on the door, and then suddenly I end up the center of a conversation, and I don't really want that, but it kind of perpetuates. And then I think, well, why not just roll with it? And
yeah, but then you have a bunch of bruises and everything. That's not the way to start the conversation.
That actually happened to me. I was sitting up against a door and I kept banging my head, and it was actually amusing. And then I became the top of sort of a funny situation. So a little humor isn't so bad either, right?
The humor is really important, and sometimes we also need to not take ourselves so seriously in social situations, right? I know we can feel scared, and there can be, certain anxiety that can even affect our physical being. But sometimes if we can just lighten up, remember that, often wherever it is that we're at, any type of event, it's not really all that serious. You don't have to impress everyone. We can go. We can bring the right attitude. Like I always just joke, slap a smile on it and really see what happens, and don't have really high expectations, and don't have crazy expectations on yourself.
I like when you said sometimes you just don't want to say anything. Often if you're saying, if you're speaking to someone and they're the ones in the group nodding and smiling, they become very alluring to me because I think, what are they thinking? So sometimes, if you can, a little less is more, right? I think that's
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Give us some examples of some crazy fun situations you've been in that you could pass along to us.
Yes. So I really observe people wherever I go, and I do go to kind of lots of events in New York, like, launches for cool new things or cool parties or like even book events. And I always like to pay attention to, how people interact and how they mingle. And the people I've noticed who seem to be the most successful socially, and by successful, I mean at ease, they make connections, they seem to be having a good time, they aren't constantly looking at their watch or their phone or, looking nervous or uncomfortable in the corner. These people tend to have an attitude of, I'm here in the moment, I may as well have a good time, right? It's a feeling of just allowing oneself to relax. And these people, I feel, aren't thinking, what's everyone thinking? Am I talking too much? Am I not talking enough? Am I should I go speak to this guy, that guy? Always kind of looking over whoever you're speaking to's shoulder. If we can just allow ourselves to be present, even just breathe. Like, even breathing can be such an underestimated thing when we're nervous. Just take a couple of deep breaths before we do something that maybe scares us or makes us feel nervous. And to remember, I'm here to have a good time. Being myself is enough. I'm just going to come, do my best to have fun, and that's it. And there's no more pressure than that.
That's definitely my crutch, is my phone. Like, every time there's this awkward situation, I go
down?
right to my phone. Yeah.
You look down. See,
It's
now that I would find rude.
Yeah.
Now, if I was talking to you and we were at a party and you look down on your phone, I would think, clearly I'm boring him. And either I would start to feel self-conscious or I would feel like I'm boring you, but it's really not the case. In fact, you're just so nervous.
It's just social awkwardness for me where I'm just like, whoa,
I would suggest against that, though, because I think pulling out your phone, if that's the case,
I'm trying not to.
Do what I do. Go find a bathroom and go sit in there and then think about your next, and then think about
contemplate about life.
Contemplate about life. Think about your
bathroom,
next move. I mean, honestly, it works for me. I come out of there refreshed, and it's something.
Well, what are you doing in there?
No, nothing. I'm thinking. I'm getting my nerves out. I'm not doing anything but that. Maybe I'm putting on a little lipstick or something.
Okay.
But I have a friend who is, and I hang out with him quite a bit. And he's always looking down on his phone, and I get so irritated. I'm like, would you knock it off?
Yeah, and I've been on the receiving end of that, too, where I'm with someone, and I'm like, I'm trying to hold a conversation with them, and then I notice them doing the same thing I'm doing, and I'm like, oh, now I know how it feels.
Exactly. And then you're like, hello,
Yeah.
I'm over here. It's funny, I belong to a beach club, and that's where I was last night. And what sort of, if you will, forced conversation, although we had a great time, was you're not allowed to have your phones with you. I mean, you can text from there, but you can't use your phone, which is in this day and age seems absurd. But it's really kind of nice because it does force you to look at someone in their eye and have a proper conversation the way people did in the in the 1500s. So in that way, I kind of like that. It'd be kind of fun. You know what? To have a party. I'm going to do this next time I do one. Park your phone at the door. What about that?
That'd be pretty cool.
Right? They'd be pissed off, probably.
Of course they would.
Right?
Yeah, a friend of mine does that. A friend of mine who hosts a Thanksgiving dinner, it's like literally you check your phone at the door, and it's wonderful because everybody's present and they're engaging. And like you said, Kat, when you feel nervous, you pull out your phone. Keep that in mind next time you see people on their phone, right? And if you think, oh, they're rude, you can actually just check in and say, they're probably a little bit uncomfortable, and they don't really know what to do. So it is an absolute crutch for a lot of people. In fact, I confronted lovingly a former colleague of mine about this. And I said to him, Pete, it's...
I'm looking at my phone, by the way.
Having fun? I said, are you having fun? It seems like you're not enjoying yourself. And he was like, I just don't really I'm not really confident around new people. And I explained to him, I said, if you're on your phone in the corner, a lot of people in this group might think that, we're not really interesting for you, or you might be a little bit bored here. And he had no idea that that's how he came across. He was like, oh my gosh, that's the opposite. I think I'm boring. And so it's hard for me to get in on the conversation, because you guys just speak so quickly and you're all laughing. And so it's really important too to remember that if someone else kind of feels nervous, you can eradicate their nerves and yours by just striking up a conversation and asking a couple of questions.
Now, politically, look at what's going on in politics nowadays and talk about social situations. I mean, you watch these guys in the caucuses, you watch them in the debates, you watch them get interviewed. What the heck can any of these characters do to appear more appealing. I was watching very, very carefully what was going on in the caucuses. I've been listening and watching what's going on in New Hampshire today. I watched the debates, and I know they got a lot of coaching, and frankly, I do a little coaching on the side, so I get it. What do you say to them to become more approachable and likable? Because a lot of it really is about likability.
Yes. So, again, an important law to know, and this applies to everything, not just even necessarily social encounters with people or the way that we present ourselves in any certain light, but positivity attracts positivity and negativity repels. So, for example, just say you're like at airport and there's a man there who's angry because the airline lost his bag. And he's angry about that, and he doesn't know you. His anger is not directed at you, and the whole bag loss situation has nothing to do with you. His anger still repels you. You would not want to talk to that man. Right? You wouldn't want to go there and start a conversation with him because any type of negativity, however it's framed, whatever circumstance, isn't attractive, right? However, if you see someone anywhere who's just maybe, at a bar, at a lunch, whatever, who's laughing and being chatty, and you hear someone make a nice comment like, I love this place, or the service here is awesome, or, oh my gosh, you must definitely get the oysters, they're fantastic. That person is already attractive to you, whether or not you even speak to them, ever. You already get a very clear vibe from
Susie,
whoever it is that you meet.
I want to thank you for being on with us. I think you are a doll. I think you are darling. And I've really, even though these are sort of little tips that we all know, it's just good to keep it in mind. If you're nervous, everybody else is too. It's all good. It's okay. And then just try and keep it positive and ask about the other guy, right? I mean, that's really all it is.
Yes.
I want to go to a party with you. You know what? I want to go to a party with you next is what I want to do because you sound like a great party person. And you're from New York, right?
Yes, based in Manhattan. So yeah, lots of parties here.
Oh, I'm from back east. Next time I come back there, I'm actually going to call on you, and maybe we could do something. Or even if you come out here, that'd be kind of fun. I'll ride on your coattails and go to a party, and you could tell me if I'm behaving properly.
Yes.
How's that? Okay, Susie, thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. She's adorable.
She is, yeah. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do that, but it's always good to know and check in and make sure that you're kind of okay socially. Who do we have on now? Because I really want to talk about, how some of these politicians are behaving socially. Do we have Jon on?
I'm here.
Hi, Jon. Thank you so much for being here. Jon Fleischman, thanks for being here. And you are the founder and publisher of the FleischmanReport.org. Is that correct? No, flashreport.org. Thank you so much for being here. I know you've got a lot to say. I know that you've been studying what's going on. Clearly, the caucuses in Iowa and what went down there. And I want to get your opinion on that and what's going on in New Hampshire. But for a moment, do you think that the win for Cruz in Iowa will determine anything or the outcome of the Republicans or not really?
Well, I think that the way that Iowa turned out, the big news of the day, of course, was that Donald Trump didn't win when everybody thought that he had a very good shot at winning. And so what that really means is that the Republican primary is going to be a drawn-out process. It's not going to be one person coming in and sweeping it up early, which frankly has been the tradition for Republicans in the last few elections. And so I think Ted Cruz is in a strong position, probably not so much for New Hampshire, which is a bit more moderate, but certainly going into South Carolina, Nevada, and then, as they call it, the SEC primary, which is a bunch of southern states where he is very
he's going to clean up. He's going to clean that one up. But today, there's a Boston TV station today. They've got Trump up by 25% over in New Hampshire. But again, that's sort of expected. So I agree. It depends upon, where the primary, where the caucus, where all this is landing. I mean, and
understand it's important for listeners to understand that in New Hampshire, you don't really register by party, and so anybody who wants to can vote in the Republican primary. So if you're an independent voter or even a Democrat voter, you can maneuver your way into being able to vote for Trump if you want to. And so it makes things a little bit more difficult. I will say that, the history of Iowa is that people win the Republican or win the caucus in Iowa and then go on to kind of flame out. They don't really do well. However, the difference this go-around is the incredible amount of money that Cruz is raising, and now that Rubio is raising. And so whereas before the model was always there was one kind of establishment Republican candidate who actually had all the money to compete. And then there was always some conservative candidate who ran, maybe won Iowa, but then that was it.
Right.
And that is certainly not the case in this election. So I think it's going to be a long, drawn-out primary process. And just look at New Hampshire, the strategy there. Trump will beat up on Cruz. Cruz will beat up on Trump. Rubio will beat up on Cruz. And then everyone else who's running will beat up on Rubio. Governor Chris Christie today is beating up on Rubio, calling him Bubble Boy, which I guess is some reference to a Seinfeld episode.
Okay, Christie's calling him Bubble Boy?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what he could say in return to that one. It's like, hey, back at you, buddy. But, let me just really quickly, first of all, we have a friend and a colleague of mine, Dan Lothian, former White House correspondent for CNN. He's on the line, too, so I'm going to bring him on in a second. And he's also the founder of heartbeings.com. That is a terrific website that we could talk about also later. But may I just ask you really quickly, where's your affiliation? Who are you backing, if you don't mind my asking?
I haven't endorsed any candidates myself because I've kind of spent my time as an observer of the process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably ideologically more in tune with Rubio and Cruz than probably some of the others in the field.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm like a lot of Republicans, which is that we've had enough of Clintons and Obamas. So I would just like to see a common sense return to the White House.
Right. So, I mean, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on that. I was a little scared when I saw Cruz speaking and in Iowa. I really was. He concerns me. I feel like too many personal issues and social issues are getting involved in this election, way more than I wanted. And I really don't want to go back. I do not. I think many people have. No, but hang on. I just think a lot of people really have come. We've come a long way. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I vote for the guy or the girl that I think would do the best job. He really concerns me. His dad concerns me. He comes off very disingenuous to me, and I just like to put it out there. I'm one of those people.
The one thing I will say is, while technically it's a national election,
mm-hmm.
it happens in parts. And I think a lot of the campaigning that you see in Iowa from Ted Cruz and others isn't different or unique. It just used to be in the old days, you could go to Iowa and preach to the evangelical community, and you didn't see it on television in California.
Right.
And then you go out to California, and I'm not trying to say the candidates change their positions on the issues, but how they talk. Are they talking to you? Are they preaching to you? Are they invoking the name of God, or are they talking about libertarian values? Their positions don't change.
That's a good point.
But the techniques that they use to talk to the audience they need to move changes based on where they are. That's not the speeches that you're going to hear in New Hampshire.
To me, Cruz
just the way that it is.
That's actually a great point. You're right about that. But it's a new world. It's just, and it's almost like saying back in the day with Kennedy and Nixon, it was a whole new world then too. Kennedy won based on a little bit of his looks. Nowadays, in other words, this is a new world that we're in. So we're going to hear about what's going on in New Hampshire the way that we were.
I think your point is correct. I think that Ted Cruz probably is establishing himself as kind of the most religious right candidate in the field. So if that's something that turns a voter off, he's probably not going to do as well. Someone like Ted Cruz will count on the fact that as conservative as he is, Clinton represents the far left. And so then
Sanders represents the far. Sanders is the far left. Clinton's left, but Sanders is really the far left. But no, I got what you're saying. But whatever happened to separation of church and state? I mean, somehow now church and state seem to be, holding hands more than ever in this particular election, in my opinion. I don't like that. That's why.
I don't know if they're talking about mixing church and state. I think the point he's trying to make is that the people we have in office should have values, and that we need to return to a culture that says that it's okay to have values being upheld by the people that are in office. I don't think he's advocating an official religion for the state just because he's a religious person running for office. And I think that's an important distinction.
If they're going to point that one at Obama, I personally will disagree because I don't know. He seems to have done okay with his wife and 2 kids, and there's really not too much that they could say on that one. I understand pointing that finger at Clinton and all the good God, what could only happen if she ends up in office with Bill back in there, and it'd actually be a lot of fun to watch.
I would love that. Just see Bill
this
in
is going to be a very
see what the hell would go on back
election. There are a lot of people who think that Rubio will rise amongst the Republicans because he has kind of a more Reagan-esque, optimistic message of opportunity that he's campaigning on. It's just tough. It's a temperament primary. There's a lot of mad Republicans after 8 years of Obama, and they want to look for a candidate who they think is as mad as they are. And it's really impacting the primary.
Well, what's
because
interesting,
that's why Trump is doing well. That's why Cruz is doing well. It's because after 8 years of a very liberal president, the Republican base, not everyone, but the Republican base that is a big part of the primary, they're just mad. And they're like, I want someone who's angry because I'm angry. And so suddenly all the blemishes, the imperfections, the things you might normally look at a candidate, kind of fade, because you're like, you know what, that guy, I may would agree with him on the issues, but he's not mad enough.
Got it. One really quick observation on Trump. Then I really do want to talk to Dan. Dan, are you over there?
I'm here.
Okay. A lot of people are just, they're not too thrilled with Donald Trump. They think he's arrogant. But notice how well that he graciously, if you will, bowed out of that one in Iowa and on to New Hampshire he went. He's not as concerned with the social issues, and he's more concerned with more the fiscal issues, in my opinion. So if people are really concerned about social issues, but they want a Republican, I'm not sure why they're so concerned about Trump, why they're so afraid of him. I don't quite get that one. To me, Cruz is your guy to be afraid of. That's just my opinion. That's just what I feel. What are your thoughts on Trump? What are your thoughts on him?
I think I draw similarities to the Arnold Schwarzenegger phenomena in California that we lived through. Right. I think he very adroitly knows how to capitalize on populism, and he's a smart guy in business, and he's able to take that acumen and turn it around into this environment. He's a very formidable candidate. And then, for me, the part that's just hard to understand is that he can say like the most outrageous things and nobody really cares. So it's an odd phenomena, and we'll see how he does. Like I said, in Iowa, I think he underperformed because while he does great behind a podium and he flies around in his helicopter, he doesn't have a ground game. He has a lot of enthusiastic people, but no one's organizing.
That is true. He's developing a ground game, but he doesn't have one quite yet. Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree, and thanks for having me on the show here. I'm stunned by what Donald Trump has been able to do, because like many other people out there, we figured that there are only certain things that you can say and get away with out on the campaign trail. Usually someone sticks their foot in their mouth one time, you might be forgiven. Twice, you're out. And every time that he does something outrageous or says something that a lot of people are offended by, then he tends to move up in the polls. But I do agree that, he did not have an established ground game in Iowa. I think he probably, along with everyone else, bought into what the polls were saying, that he's immensely popular and that people will turn out in droves and vote for him. And I think it was certainly the realization that after months of these unbelievable high numbers, that he is beatable. And that may cause voters elsewhere to look at it completely different, and say, okay, well, I thought he was going to be the guy that was just going to walk away with it, so I was going to be part of that. But now that there might be some life in some of the other candidates, I might vote for them. So that's kind of my takeaway from what happened in Iowa.
Do you know what I think? I think by not showing up at the last Republican debate, I found that to be very arrogant. When he said, hey, you need me because the ratings won't be as high. I thought, you know what? No, that's just too arrogant for me. And then he went off and he did what he did with the veterans, which was terrific. But come on, it was a overly planned event, and that kind of turned me off a little bit. I wonder if that turned off voters to Trump, or it's just that the base in Iowa was always going to go for Cruz. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I think it was just the base in Iowa. I saw that as just another Donald Trump move. And if some of the other things that he did earlier in the campaign did not impact him, then certainly I didn't think that was something that would have moved the needle sort of in a negative against him. I mean, it's very easy to sort of beat up on the press, because people like that. And I think you can be immensely popular if you beat up on the press. Right. And but it did, I think, in the eyes of some, come off as being arrogant. But certainly I don't think it turned off his base, his supporters.
You don't. And what do you think about that, Jon Fleischman?
Yeah, I would agree. And I keep coming back to the fact that in Iowa, it's such a small, closed-knit community and caucuses. And, there's hundreds of caucuses around the state, and at most of those caucuses, Trump didn't have anyone in there speaking on his behalf. So you go in as an Iowan, you brave the cold, there's a blizzard tonight, you're there for a couple of hours of listening to people from your community talking about the candidates, and they go, Trump, anyone? Interesting. That kind of stuff matters. And And also the polling showed that it was people who said they would participate that hadn't participated before that really skewed to Trump, and those people didn't. So
where do you think he's going to do the best? What states?
Well, New Hampshire, he'll do very well.
Yeah.
And then I think it's going to be more of a slog for him. He's going to go down to South Carolina, where I think that'll be where the embarrassment called Jeb Bush tries to make his last stand, and I think Rubio will try to run up his numbers, and that of course is very prime territory for Cruz. So it's almost like Trump needs to post a big win in New Hampshire, and then he's got to get to Super Tuesday, where more big blue states. When I say blue states, they're states that are Democrat states, but the Republicans in those states, who tend to be more moderate, still deliver huge numbers of delegates for the convention. So you come back to Massachusetts, or you come back to New York, or you come back to Michigan, and states like that, and that's where Trump once again will shine. And so the question is, do Rubio and Cruz split up the vote enough so that Trump can stay alive?
Let's talk for a minute, Dan, about Hillary and Sanders. I was a little surprised that it was that close. I knew it would be close in Iowa. I figured so, but wow, I was really surprised about that. And also what's going on in New Hampshire with those two. Is it possible that he can take her over? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I was surprised too. I think a lot of pundits and certainly some voters out there who were paying attention to the Iowa caucus were surprised that when they went to bed at night, they did not know who was the winner on the Democrat side. I mean, it was interesting. I think the networks around 10:30 called Ted Cruz the winner on the Republican side, and yet we didn't know. They were just 1 point off, and so I was surprised by that. And I think the Clinton campaign was also taken aback by the way that he has been able to get out there and win over some of these younger voters. I think he's really tapping into a level of frustration among younger voters, and we saw that I think play out in Iowa. Go ahead.
The statistic in Iowa was overwhelming. It was like over 80% of voters under 30 voted for Sanders.
But wouldn't that make sense? I mean, it's like the Berkeley said in a way. I mean, I know because I have two sons who are of voting age, and they are big Sanders people. And when I ask them to explain, and look, we are a family, and Dan knows this. We talk politics a lot. We're all over the board. We talk Republican, Democrat, somewhere in the middle. So they've grown up with this stuff, and I'm really surprised. What their views are, but I get where they're coming from. It would almost make sense, right, Dan, that a lot of the younger people would be going for Sanders because they. Go ahead.
No, definitely, and I don't think certainly very young folks out there who are voting, maybe perhaps for the first time, I don't think they analyze a candidate the way that we do and look, a year down the road. They look at who appeals to me now, who is speaking my language, who is touching on some of the issues that are important to me now, and they may not think about some of the pitfalls of someone who maybe, as you pointed out, to the left of Hillary Clinton. It's in the now, and that appeals to them. And as you just heard, they showed up in big numbers for him in Iowa.
So having been the White House correspondent and having been on the Air Force One so many times with Obama, and which is such a distinguished, interesting, incredible career, and just a little background, Jon Fleischman. Dan and I sort of started out together in the business, so we go way back, and we're very, very dear friends.
Way back when I had a big mustache and big hair and big glasses.
Oh, I remember the glasses. I don't even remember the mustache. I got to dig. Okay, I've got to dig up. I think I still look the same, kind of the hair and all that stuff. You don't?
I hope I look better because that was pretty embarrassing back then.
I think you look better. I think I kind of look the same. Actually, I think my hair's better now. But look how far we've come, Dan. I always love to say that when I talk about what you do because I'm so proud of you. You're a terrific reporter.
Well, thank you.
But do you feel like Hillary or perhaps Sanders, can she do this? I mean, everyone feels like this is her time. Can she do this on the heels of Obama? Is this her time? Or is it going to go to somebody even more left than her or just in a total opposite direction, somebody like a Cruz or a Rubio or maybe a Trump?
I'll tell you, I was on a radio show last year in Tennessee before we saw, Donald Trump really take off the way he did. It was early, and there were those indications. And I was asked about who I thought would have the staying power, and I certainly did not predict that Donald Trump. I don't think anyone predicted that we would see.
I did.
Well, okay, so you went on that. But I think most of us did not expect what this turned out to be, at least up to this point. And I was pointing to Marco Rubio, and I felt that in the end, everyone was talking about how experience was a negative in this campaign. And that was something I think really new, because typically candidates like to talk about, what they've done, their track record, and they use that to sort of bolster their status and bolster rather. And in this case, that was a negative. And but I
wait,
felt
with Rubio,
that
you said with who? It was a negative. It was.
With voters, I mean, voters did
I
not
gotcha.
want people with experience. They wanted that outside person, because what you kept hearing from people was that, from voters out there, is that if someone has no experience, how much worse could they do than what we currently have? And you keep hearing that time and time again. But while all that noise was happening, I still felt that Marco Rubio, in the end, once everything settled down, once people on the extremes of each side, would sit down and analyze the candidates, that Marco Rubio would be the one who would rise to the top. I think he's more moderate. I think he has the establishment credentials, and he's a safe vote. And so
That's a good point.
Him,
I happen to agree with you. Yeah.
And so I picked him, quite a while back. And then, of course, when I saw what was happening with Trump, I started second-guessing myself. But I don't know. I still feel that in the end, and you see him coming out he has a lot of juice now behind him. He's raising a lot of money. He's really talking up his third-place finish there, which was just by a whisker, that he didn't get second place. And I think that will energize him and get a lot more attention now, and that could help him.
I have to take you. I have to tell you, I can handle listening to him. Cruz, I find very difficult. He just appears to me as a voter very disingenuous, and I really had a tough time listening to his victory speech, if you want to call it that, in Iowa. It just was something. I felt like I was listening to
the speech that never ended.
The speech that never ended, and the way he went up to his mom. Did you see that? It's almost like he was kneeling in church. The way he went up to mom was almost embarrassing. And then, I just felt like he was preaching. I know his background. I know the preacher father, but I felt like he was preaching to me his own personal value rather than what is best for the country. Rubio is someone that is acceptable. Wow, but look at Bush, right? I mean, everyone thought maybe 2 years ago that he would be the guy, and he's just falling off to the wayside.
Well, I
think
can't
get traction.
I think Republicans are done with that family.
But
I will make this observation about Rubio. It's kind of like what you said about how Bernie Sanders is kind of like makes Hillary Clinton look reasonable. Well, looking at Marco Rubio, with the exception of probably the immigration issue, I mean, he's like a 96% voter with the Heritage Action Committee. He's a very conservative. He voted against every bailout. He's voted against all the subsidies, except sugar subsidies, of course. So he's actually a very conservative guy. But I think part of this is it's a temperament primary.
It's so
and
true.
while you've got Cruz and you've got, Trump screaming and angry, it's like Rubio is kind of unflaggingly saying, damn it, I'm the optimist, and we're going to be optimists.
Right.
I hear that.
Better days ahead.
Right.
I do hear that. Yeah.
So I think that's part of the distinction is such a marked difference in his approach and the message that he's trying to deliver. And it's one that when you're done listening to him, you kind of feel better as opposed to listening to people that are angry. You kind of end going, wow, I don't know if I'm more angry or more depressed.
I was always disappointed that Kasich didn't
and when
have
I
a
said
little
moderate,
more.
that's what I was referring to. It's more of his temperament. He's not
Exactly.
He's not turning you off the way that Deborah, you were talking about Ted Cruz doing to you. That it's more sort of in his approach is more moderate. Certainly, his track record doesn't line up with that. But yes, certainly his approach has been more moderate.
Kasich was a good guy. If it is a good guy, if just people had given him, if he was able to sort of stay in there a little longer. And I know he doesn't have the support, so that's never going to happen. But getting back,
no, I mean a super PAC just announced $4 million of funding for him. So I mean, he's got support out there.
But not enough to get to the top, is what I'm saying. I mean, it's just not. I don't think he's got the legs to make it all the way. Do you?
Although anything can happen in this race.
That's true.
There have been a lot of people that have been supposing that he's actually campaigning for vice president because he's from Ohio, the must-win state, and that if he can demonstrate enough, kind of ability on the road here, that he might be low-hanging fruit for somebody to pick on the ticket.
Interesting. Now, what about Sanders and Clinton? I mean, that's just something else. I mean, do you think he could take this away from her? In which case, we could very well end up with an election with somebody on the very far right and the very far left, in which case, I don't know if we've ever had that kind of polar opposite election before. This could be incredibly interesting.
And
I'll
sure,
be
someone
standing
like
on
Bloomberg, right, jumps in. Right? So I think the big change that has occurred that has really transformed this election cycle, and it will be a big deal for Sanders, is it used to be that really all the money in presidential politics came from the very wealthy.
Right.
And because of the internet and the change of the way technology has empowered individual people, now you're seeing all these kind of minor candidates, we call them, now have these big bankrolls. I mean, Sanders was saying that within 24 hours of the vote in Iowa, he'd received over $3 million in online contributions.
That's
and that's
pretty
in
amazing.
one day. And so suddenly it's not like Hillary's the only one that has access to cash, but where it's really going to matter. So Sanders is going to be able to continue to compete in New Hampshire, South Carolina, but it's going to be when you get these bigger, broader primaries where there are 10 or 11 states, can Sanders generate the kind of dollars that it takes to be on television and compete broadly with Hillary Clinton, who will have no problem raising money.
I'm going to venture to say yes, just based on what's going on, because you don't know. I mean, you think maybe not, but then there have been so many twists and turns and surprises. Dan, what do you think? I mean, especially having covered so much under Obama. What are your thoughts between?
With Hillary? I think this is one of those odd campaign seasons where we haven't seen anything like it in the past, and I'm not sure we'll see anything like it in the future again. Where it's very difficult to predict which way voters will go, and maybe we have to wait and see what happens in New Hampshire and see what kind of numbers come out of there and some of the other early states. And if he can pull off either, what's a virtual tie or even, win in a couple of these, then he can get the kind of momentum that's needed to continue to raise the cash. And maybe we'll see the shift like we saw when I was covering the 2008 campaign where, once President Obama started showing signs that he could really do something here, then the money started moving from Secretary Clinton to Mr. Obama. And so, there's always that possibility that if it seems like, wow, as much as they may not like him, if they feel that he really is gaining that kind of support on a national level, then the money will flow from Secretary Clinton, because everybody wants to line up with a winner.
Dan, you're such a gentleman. Secretary Clinton and Mr. Obama. I love how you refer to people. And let me tell you, I take note of that because no one does that, and that's just who you are, and I love that. No one's talking that way. They're like Clinton and Sanders, and you're,
I know. I got to get over that. I got to just, let it go.
No, you don't. I think it's very refreshing, actually. Anyway, both of you, thank you very much for joining us. Anybody want to call this or no? I just always like to know. Curious. Anybody want to put your reputation on the line and call this one a little bit?
I agree with my colleague. This is a chaotic, strange political season that we haven't seen before. So I'm only prepared to say that I don't know what's going to happen.
That's it. How about you, Dan?
I don't know it could be. Look, Bloomberg's not in the race, but I think Bloomberg has a good chance if he gets in. How about that? That's throwing one out there.
Okay.
So let's say Bloomberg.
Okay, well, obviously I'm going to have you back on.
He's going to ban your soda drinks.
Oh, my God. That's right. Oh, my gosh.
Well, yeah, I got rid of sodas a while back, so I'm okay with good water.
All right, thank you. So Jon Fleischman with FlashReport.org and Dan Lothian, former White House correspondent for CNN, and his website, heartbeings.com. Please look them both up. And both of you, thank you so much for being here. And we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, thank you so much. That was fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just have to tell you, I wanted to talk about this more than anything today, Kurt, because of my concerns after seeing the Iowa caucus. And I will tell you, I will vote for the man or the woman. I have never voted on party. I'm one of those. And I'm just concerned. We'll see what happens. We'll see what goes down on this one.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's very interesting. So I'm appreciative that they joined us. And welcome to another fun edition of What's Up with Deborah Kobylt. And we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.